Everybody, my name is Tim. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to Vellum Fundamentals Week 5. I have checked. It's been over a year since week 4, so we're not exactly doing weekly anymore. I'm not planning to do this weekly anymore, but I wanted to do another Vellum tutorial and I figured this would be just put it into the Vellum Fundamentals series. So this is going to be a 2-part video. So this is going to be week 5 and there's going to be week 6 as well, because it's going to be a little bit of a longer thing. You can see my dog in the background there. I got a dog now. Hey, Bobby. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, that Bobby. All right. So anyway, what we're going to be learning is how we can split Vellum simulations. So this is something you cannot normally do if you've ever tried. If you try to change the point count in a Vellum simulation by removing something from the simulation, Vellum will break. But there are actually tricks to doing this. And then we can sort of learn how we can create this cool effect of these cells sort of splitting. Yeah, so this is going to be a 2-parter. In the first part, we're going to be learning how we can source these, these things into Vellum and then remove things from Vellum. Then the video after that, we're going to take that knowledge and sort of use it to build this cell splitting effect. So yeah, without further ado, let's dive into Houdini and let's learn how we can split Vellum simulations.
All right, let's learn how we can create this cool effect of a Vellum sim splitting up. Which is yeah, not normally something you can easily do in Vellum. If you ever tried to delete stuff or change point counts in Vellum, it will completely break. But it is possible. You just need to know how to do it. So there's a couple of steps involved, and then you can make cool effects like this. So yeah, this video is going to be split up into 2 parts. First, we're just going to talk about sort of the basics on sort of just doing, like, how can we source something into Vellum and then delete it from Vellum. And then we're gonna, after that, we're gonna sort of take that knowledge and then we're gonna actually build the splitting setup. So the first video will probably be relatively short. The second video should be a lot longer. So you'll be able to buy all of these source files. They'll be on Gumroad and on Patreon. If you if you get the source files, because like we'll be talking about how to do this splitting setup. But of course, if you saw the intro video, we're actually doing a thing where we're sort of have this whole thing sort of like on a word and sort of randomly sort of splitting up. So this is actually using my path sequencer HDA toolset, which is an HDA toolset that I've built that allows you to sort of take geometry and sort of instance it on points and then sort of randomly time offset it. So we can sort of retime it here to sort of create these things in a very easily art-directable way. So if you actually, if you get this on Patreon, the source files will be in the tier where you also be able to download Path Sequencer for the full HDA. If you get it on Gumroad, then there will be a discount link to Path Sequencer on Gumroad. So your Path Sequencer, there will be a 50% discount. So whatever you pay for the source files here, you'll get the effectively off from for Path Sequencer. So this cell division type of effect is actually an effect like I've done this before. I have a course on Houdini School called Build Your Brain, which effectively kind of does this, and you'll learn a bit more as well. But with this thing, I've actually improved the setup a little bit. I've been wanting to cover this on my own YouTube channel as well. So I've improved the setup from the Build Your Brain. Now it works with substeps as well. And there's a little thing in here where they actually randomly subdivide. So they don't, like on what I did here, they all divide at once. And here you can actually, they actually sort of randomly divide, which is kind of cool. And it all just sort of neatly works. And this is actually simmed with some substeps, so with 3 substeps, and it just looks kind of cool. So yeah, in the first video, we're going to be learning how we can source things into Vellum, delete them from Vellum. Then in the second video, we're going to be learning how we can actually do this cell division effect. And then at the end of that video, we're also going to be learning how we can sort of get these things to grow on this text. You can see it's pretty straightforward. This is a couple of nodes just with my Path Sequencer HDA toolset. So if you want to try that out, you'll be able to do it as well. But yeah, without further ado, let's learn how we can actually remove stuff from a Vellum simulation. All right, so let's make a just a new node here. I'm gonna call this just a tutorial, or there's a Vellum tutorial. Right, here we go. Let's go in here. So I'm sure if you've been playing around with Vellum, you've had plenty of time because it's been a while that I've done my previous Vellum fundamentals videos. But if you've ever played around with it, you try to remove stuff from a Vellum simulation, you're gonna be in for a rude awakening. So let me do a Vellum balloon. Configure Vellum balloon. Let's do it in a DOP network because we're gonna be doing that in a little bit. So we're gonna configure our own Vellum simulation in here. So let's not use the SOP one. So just make a DOP network. Put the constraints in like this. The geometry and constraints. Let's do a Vellum solver. Vellum object. Let's just source it in here. Let's do backtick op input path, open bracket, quotation marks, and put 0 and backtick, and then do the same and put it on here. Then we should have our sphere here. So this will sort of load it in from first and second input. Right. So let's, I don't know, make a ground, merge it in. Actually, put this down. Let's do a gravity. All right. Beautiful. Right. So we have a little squiggly bouncy ball. All right, let's try something with a SOP solver. So this video is going to be a little bit more complex than any of the other things that we've done before. If you don't know what a SOP solver is, a SOP solver is effectively a node that allows you to use SOP tools in and to sort of run over them every frame. I actually have an entire course dedicated to this. Like I make a ton of courses, but I actually have an entire course dedicated to building custom solvers in Houdini. Yeah, so you can learn all about custom solvers here, and it will teach you how to build custom solvers in a SOP solver. But yeah, let's make a SOP solver. Let me, by the way, first let's do it in here, because just to prove a point as to what a SOP solver is, you can also make one here. If you just make a solver, allows you to do it in SOP network. For example, let's say I do an attribute VOP, which you should all be pretty familiar with. And let's say I add some noise, just to sort of prove a point as to what it's going to do, so you kind of understand kind of what it is. So you know that if you do something like this, you can sort of add a noise now to our position. So we're make a VOP network, we make a noise, we feed our position in here, we add this noise to our position. If you don't understand this basic stuff, watch my Houdini 101 course, which sort of goes over the very basics like this, but I'm assuming you know a little bit about, I promoted in the wrong way, about how this stuff works. If you don't, come back to this tutorial later, because it will be too complex for you. Oh, for some reason I have also not promoted this one. Oh, promote. Oh, keep clicking the wrong one. All right, there we go. All right, there we go. All right, so this allows us to sort of add some noise to this thing, as you can see here. But you can see this will sort of do it. You will see it will get a solver. I get a blue thing, and it will do this every frame. So I get a sort of a evolving sort of pattern. So this is doing stuff every frame on my geometry. So you can make a SOP solver inside of DOPs. Actually, if you make the one over here, it's actually in a DOP network. You can see in here, this is a SOP solver in a DOP network. So pretty much kind of the same thing. So if you go in here, get a SOP solver, and this SOP solver allows you to sort of manipulate geometry with with our SOP tools. So if we go in here, you see we get a top import. So these imports are geometry. We can put stuff in between here, and again, you will have all of your SOP nodes here, like mountain and all of the other crazy stuff that you would want to do. You have them all in here. You could manipulate. We could try to do, for example, our thing that we did before. Let's just do it again. Let's just put a turbulent noise. Let's just add some stuff, for example, to our position in here, and then it will do it in the solver. So it will add the position, and then the solver will do its thing, and then you'll get interesting results. Let's have a look at what this is gonna produce. We can have a look at what this is gonna do. So you can see we add some to the position, and then the solver is gonna do it, and then we get a walking squiggly ball, which can be quite cool. So now we have a walking around little squiggly ball. Pretty cool. This is not what we're gonna do. Why I am gonna sort of show this thing is we're gonna use these things extensively in order to sort of split our simulation. But why I'll move this to the side. Why I'm doing this is, if you ever tried this, let's try to remove a point from this thing. Let's say we delete a couple of points here from our sphere. Let's say we don't do this at the first frame. We put a switch here. We do this. Let's say we do this after a couple of frames. So we can kind of see what's going to happen. So $F. Oh, no. $F above frame 50. Right. Now it's going to simulate for 50 frames, and then it's going to delete those points. And you can see, all right, now it's gonna might even crash. So it indeed did crash. So the reason for this is the way Vellum works. If you remember, we have, if we have a look at our stuff here, we have geometry and we have constraints. These constraints are sort of matched with the geometry. So if you suddenly remove either some constraints or some geometry, they cannot match the constraint with the geometry anymore, and the whole thing just completely implodes. So that's why you cannot really do this. We can have a look at another example maybe as to when it breaks. So instead of doing it like this, let's remove this. Let's source this sphere. Let's remove this. Do a Vellum source. And if you already know how all of this works, you can skip a little bit of the beginning section, but I like to be thorough in sort of explaining things. But there will be timestamps if you don't wanna wait for the stuff that you might already know. Right. So let's do grid. Let's move that upwards a little bit. And like you already know from the other weeks how this all works, but again, some repetition is never problematic. Right, let's do 1 point. Let's change this every frame. And let's say that this should be source points. Point, right, source point. I'm going to each frame source something in here. I'm gonna do oh wait, first need to do this one, instance on points. We're gonna do instance on points, right? So now this should instance these spheres on the points. You can see they will sort of drop down. Oh, not target path. This should go into constraints. Let's do $F. Let's do $F modulo modulo 10 equals 1. So it will only do it once every 10 frames, else we get too much. But you can see now we're sourcing this. Let's try removing one of these and let's see what happens, because we're gonna run into the same problem. So let's do our stop solver. Stop solver in here. We can just put it in there. All right. So we have our geometry here. Let's say that, all right, that we wanna, let's do compute a class on here, connectivity. We can do connectivity and class. So, and primitive. So this will create an attribute on primitive sort of for each connected attribute, for each connected piece of like sphere thing. So if we put, let's say, do we primitive random from attribute and the class, we should get, no, I want random from attribute. Yeah, so you can see we get a different color for each of these things. All right, so what we could say is, all right, in a certain frame, we're going to delete all of the geometry of, let's say, class 0, or let's say class 3. So we're gonna can just do let's say 3D connected geometry, add class. So this will allow us to select a class. You can select one of these. You can see, all right, this is apparently class 0. So we're actually deleting class 0 there. You could of course change this to be any of the other. Oh, this is class 4, by the way, class 2 or class whatever. So let's say class 4, let's say we want to switch. Now you might think, because we delete the entire sphere here, that this might work, because we're not deleting a couple of points, we're deleting this entire thing. Let's try this. $f above frame 60. Right, let's have a look at what this is gonna do. So it's going to, and it's probably gonna crash again, but right. So, and then after frame 60, all right, so it's gonna try to remove it. All right, and you see weird things here happening, really weird things, and it just completely breaks. All right, so the trick is to actually remove the geometry and the constraints in the same time step. If you remove them in the same time step, everything will kind of work. So that means we also need to run over the constraints. So there's multiple ways you can run over constraints. We have this subsolver here. This is currently running over geometry. If you actually put constraint geometry here, if you play, you can see it will actually run over the constraints. So there's one way to do it. The other way is to make a subsolver constraint geometry. This is set up to have multiple in and outputs. And this will now, if we play, this will have both the geometry here and the constraint geometry, both available for you, and it will output them at the same time. This can be useful. The thing is in, like, as you can see here, there's a compile block. So this block, if you don't know what a compile block is, a compile block, everything you put in there can be compiled, which means it can be sort of multi-threaded across all of your cores. The thing is, not every node works in a compile block, so I don't always like to use this. So we're going to use this now for this example. Later, we're going to be switching to using this. But for now, this is gonna work pretty well for us. So we're gonna find a way to sort of remove both the constraints and the geometry at the same time step. And if that happens, then, well, we're a happy camper. We can actually remove them at the same time. So let's try to do something like that. Let's put an attribute wrangle here in the beneath the compile block for the geometry. Let's put two primitives. And let's say we want to create an age attribute. The Vellum doesn't have an age by default, so I can just write an age here. And I'm going to say plus equals at capital time, capital ink, and then semicolon, add age. So this will create an age attribute on our points. So we should have it here. So you can see this will sort of increment them. So time ink, effectively, what time ink is, it's your frame. It's effectively your frame rate divided by your time. That's the timing. So every frame will increment by the time increment. So you can see we get an age attribute. Now we can use this age attribute to maybe delete something when it gets above a certain age. Well, we want to do that both on our geometry and our constraints at the same time. So we want also have the same age. We want to also have it on our constraints. So let's just transfer it over. Age, right. Now we're also going to get age on our constraint. And you can see right now, nothing really changes here. So we now want to put something here to delete when something is above a certain threshold. So we could say, right, let's put it to primitives. So we want to delete both our primitives and our points. So let's actually go in here. Let's go on points first. Let's load the age attribute that's on our primitives. Let's load it into our points. For that, to do that, we're gonna type float my age. We're gonna create sort of a local variable here, and we're gonna say prim, open bracket. This allows you to load a primitive attribute. I'm gonna say, all right, from the current input, string attribute name and prim number. So we can say, all right, current attribute. We wanna load age, and we wanna grab it from the current prim num. So if we write this out, like f at cheese or whatever equals my age, you would get an attribute here that's the same. So, but because we are sort of writing it here as a sort of a local variable, we can just use it in here, right? We're going to say if my age is greater or equal than 2, we're going to remove point 0 at ptnum. So this, you can see a break right now because we haven't done it on the constraints yet, but this will remove all of the points if their age is bigger or equal than 2. Let's also do this on our constraints. So let's have a look. And you can see this actually already works. So this technically, I guess, might leave us with some empty primitives maybe in there. So for good measure, you should also probably do one over primitives. And then just say if age is greater or equal, then we're gonna do remove prim. Zero at prim num and all of the points. So if you put 0, it's gonna do all of the points. So we're gonna do remove prim. And we're gonna do remove prim here as well. So this just for good measure, so we have both the primitives and the points deleted that we can be certain of. So because you can effectively have empty primitives as well, even though it was already working. Let's just do it for good measure. Yeah. So if we now have a look at this, you can see our spheres that are being spawned are being deleted as well. And this works with time steps as well. So I could increase my sub steps. It's going to be slow, but you can see they get deleted pretty quickly. I think there's something with the yeah. So because it's now incrementing the age way too fast. So if you wanted to sort of address for that, you would need to grab your sub steps here. You would need to go, say, float substep equals, so make a channel. You would need to link this up to our substeps. And we divide our timing by substep. And then this should work the same as before. Let me reduce the frequency on our sphere a little bit, so it's going to simulate a little bit faster. Right. Yeah. So you can see works pretty well. So yeah, that's sort of the basics of this. Of sort of deleting both your geometry and your constraints in the same time step. It doesn't matter if you do it in this solver like we're doing here with the geometry and the constraints in one go. Again, this has some problems because this needs to be able to compile. So some nodes you might put in here, like for example, if you use a switch if, just as an example, I know this node cannot be compiled. This is sort of a switch that uses, like if you put a certain attribute in it, it will switch based on the attribute value. For example, that cannot be compiled, stuff like that. So if you'd have, like you could also, what you could do is you could have a stop solver 1 run over geometry, then a second stop solver run over, run over the constraints, and that will also work. The best way you could probably do that is you should do something like this called a multi-solver. We could already rebuild this because we're going to be doing that in our once we continue with this setup. A multi-solver allows you to put multiple solvers on a certain object. So we could put a Vellum object in here. You can want to say, all right, we want to solve this with a with Vellum. We're going to remove that. Let's put gravity below here. Let's put this in here. We're going to, let's see, right here, we're going to move this one. We're going to move it to our multi-solver. So this will sort of, if you put it like this in the multi-solver, it will effectively iterate. So it will iterate on our Vellum object, and it will go through this one by one. So it will first do the iteration on the Vellum solver, and then it will do the iteration on the stop solver. So if we play it like this, it will still work exactly the same as before, but now it's just using the multi-solver, and this is going to be a little bit more robust once we start introducing multiple solvers in here. So let's wait for stuff to disappear. For some reason, doesn't seem to work anymore. Oh, it's just right. For some reason, it's just taking longer. All right, there we go. It still works. Yeah, so let me reduce my some steps again. Yeah, so if you were to do that, you would go, if you were to go this route with a regular stop solver. All right, so with these basics working of sort of sourcing stuff into our simulation and removing it, in the next video we can focus on actually creating something like this, where we are going to be splitting up this actual simulation, and we're gonna be doing a lot more interesting stuff. We can have a look real quick here. You can see here I am using two different solvers. I'm using the stop solver twice, one over regular geometry and one over constraint geometry. You can see there's a lot more sort of going on, mainly in the stop solver here. So yeah, hopefully I'll see you in the next video, where we're going to be talking, like doing the actual interesting stuff. And of course, all of those techniques you can apply to pretty much anything that you want to do. So see you in the next video. And again, you can download these source files with the link in the description. There will be the source files to this entire thing. Right, see you in the next one. Peace.